This session is about benchmarking, but we're going to spend a lot of time in this session talking about how to improve your business. And then we're going to I'm going to teach you how to use this tool called the Big and Easy Analysis to analyze your initiatives and use with your team members, your employees, to help you figure out what to do to grow your business, because they have opinions, and it's important once we know once our employees are involved in what we're doing, it makes it a lot easier. This is a picture of my new book that's coming out about benchmarking. And metrics are a key. I want to tell you just a little bit, before I dive off into this metrics session, I have a slide here about, I'm not sure if I put it in or not, about my first experience with benchmarking. In 1988 or 89, a person named Howard Nussbaum. Does anybody here know Howard Nussbaum? Of course, he's not as well known as he used to be. Before that, it was Barry Eisenberg. Does anybody know Barry Eisenberg? He published a whole set of tapes on how to run a wrecking yard. And I was cleaning out in the warehouse this last week, and we found all those tapes from Barry Eisenberg. But Howard Nussbaum decided that he was going to gather up some of the operators. By the way, Howard Nussbaum was the founder of AutoInfo. And so he called on some of the larger facilities in the United States, Don Eaglesere, which was Hustiford in Wisconsin, Herb Lieberman at Lake Nor, Stu Willen with the Triplet people, which are, of course, the founders of LKQ, myself, Ed Lacey, Lacey Auto Parts in Virginia. Who was the guy's name? He's such a nice fella in Kansas that wrecked a lot of Toyotas. Midwest Foreign might have been. I can't remember the name. But there were about 10 of us yards. And he asked us to join a group to learn to grow and get a lot bigger. And over the next decade, we did get a lot bigger. I grew from a volume of about $1 million to $15 million over that period in sales. And some of the things that we did, which I'll talk about later in the presentation, were really, really innovative. One of the keys to growing, though, is to analyze our metrics. And it's time to get serious about how we grow and how we measure that. And it's kind of cool because most people don't really know what they're doing. They don't know how many invoices they wrote last month. They don't know what their average price per car is. Then they don't think much about the cause and effect. What did I do? What happened as a result of it? And once we start analyzing these metrics and gathering the metrics, we don't have to benchmark with others. We can just benchmark against ourselves. But we need metrics for purchasing. And it's an example you'll understand. Just think if you could analyze, if you're not already gathering the metrics, and I'm going to assume that most people are not, wouldn't it be nice if you knew how many cars you bought, how quickly you got your money back, and what the profit was on all those cars, and how many days it took you to get that profit? And then if you instituted a plan on, okay, maybe you even could take that report and divide it because you have two buyers, Pete buys and Billy buys. Now I want to analyze Pete's cars against Billy's cars. You would be amazed how eye-opening it is. I can remember in 1993 breaking that same analysis down by car line. So we knew that Lexuses, we spent this much on Lexuses, we got our money back in this many days, and we made this much money in profit in this many days. And on Nissans we knew, and on Chevrolets we knew, and on Fords we knew, and on so on and so on. And it became really clear that some of the cars did a whole lot better than others. Not just one car, but a group of cars. And intuitively, everybody in the room knows some of the models that just do great, but you can't buy enough of them. And so spreading it across all the cars is very helpful. Operations. Wouldn't it be nice if you knew how many cars you dismantled per hour or per day per employee? And then if you made a change in dismantling, how did that affect that number? Did that number get better or worse? Cause and effect. Distribution. How many deliveries do you do every day? You'll like this story. I was in charge of union negotiations for Ford with the UAW. We had 35 locations in 19 states and one union shop. UAW had basically marked the territory for the Detroit location because they thought that Ford would eventually, Greenleaf would expand and they would want to unionize the whole thing. And so we had 50 employees at the Detroit location. 12 of them were union. And we had about 1,000 employees at all the other locations. So the contract was up, and I hate to sound totally pejorative relative to the union, but I was on the inside. You know, there's not a lot of people probably that get on the inside of one of those rooms and gets to talk to the UAW people. So Ford hired a consultant to go with me, and they had 2 people and we had 2 people, and they delayed it for about 4 months while they were arguing about the financial results, because this particular facility was losing more money than all the other facilities we had. And the metric that applies to this part of the discussion was all the drivers throughout the United States were paid by the number of stops they made per day. It was different per location and how far they went and so on and so on. And the average driver did about 21 stops a day. Have you ever noticed, this was funny too because the office supply people, they shook their head. Have you ever noticed how when he leaves with 6 parts at 9, he comes back at 4? And when he leaves with 18 parts and he leaves at 9, he comes back at 4? Has anybody ever noticed that? What does he do with the rest of the time? And the office supply people just laughed because they had exactly the same problem. Well, our metric was 21 per driver per day, except at Detroit, and it was 12. Their drivers got 12 stops per day. And we weren't allowed, because of the union contract, to put them on pay per stop. Anyway, the union story is they had 2 people, the UAW rep. They had me and the Ford consultant. We came into a room, and the UAW rep said, I just want to let you know that we're not giving anything back. We want more. And he used the F word 14 times in 75 seconds. He said, we're going to cut the tires on every one of your delivery trucks. We're going to break every one of the windows. And we're going to strike every one of your customers. When your truck goes there to deliver parts, we're going to have 8,000 people. And when your truck goes there, we're going to have people all the way in front of the body shop where you're delivering. And when the truck drives through that line of people, there's going to be so many people around the truck, nobody is going to be able to identify who cut the tires or who broke the glass in the truck. I'm serious as a heart attack. I just was blown away. What made me think that this was different than that? I don't know. But anyway, we settled really quickly and got a new contract, and 8 weeks later we closed the location. But it was so disheartening. Maybe intuitively I knew it was like that in the back rooms, but I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, sales. How many sales per salesperson? How many invoice per salesperson? We had phone systems long before Ford bought us that counted the calls. And we could tell when we put a new person on the phone, we knew that the average incoming call was 2 minutes. The average outgoing call was 3 minutes. We knew how many calls they could make per day, in or out. The best salespeople always had 2 phones because they used one to go out, but they wanted this one to ring because they wanted the next call. And by understanding that metric, when you put a new salesperson on and he spent a lot of time gabbing to his girlfriend, his outgoing calls were 12 minutes each on average. And it was easy to identify the offenders or the people that weren't using the phone properly. All good examples of how you would use your metrics to understand and cut expenses, grow, make decisions on how you manage the business. Advertising and marketing. We analyzed, and this was in the late 80s. We didn't have PCs then. We didn't have Excel. We had a program called VisiCalc, which was the precursor to Excel. But we used different 800 numbers for every medium, every state, every ad, and so we could track all of our customers and where they came from and what our close rate was and so on and so on. But the slightest change would upset the numbers, and we would know, like when we did a mailing, how effective it was and which mailings were the most important, and we knew which zip codes were the most important in a given city, so we only mailed to those zip codes. Administration and management, there are lots of metrics that we can use there to help us in that area.